Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Joseph Greco with Auxilium. Today, our special guest is the Jerry Bellune, who is the founder of the Lexington County Chronicle and Dispatch News and the Lake Mary Fish Wrapper. He is also the publisher of 15 books. He spent a tour in the Army and has done so much more, like help a myriad of different newspapers reach accolades that they would never have reached without his input, guidance, and coaching. Without further ado, I'd like to share a quote, as I always do before we get started. Today's quote is from Socrates. "The unexamined life isn't worth living. It always pays to leave the past as a blur and the future as a fog and live in the now. But we have to learn from our mistakes and things we've already gone through and grow through them."
What I teach people in sales, which is you want customers that are relational, not transitional. You want people who are going to believe in you and your products and come back time and time again to buy from you, not guys who are just waiting for you to offer a bargain and come in and get it at just above what it costs you to put it in the store. You know, I talked to a lot of writers early in their careers. And of course, a lot of them have worked for us too as reporters and editors. But I say, if you're doing it just for the dollars, you're going to be frustrated. If you're doing it because you feel like you're making a contribution, you're actually providing people either a valued service or a couple of hours of escape from their troubled lives. You've got a purpose for it, not just the ka-ching of the cash register. Paying your bills and having money eventually one day for retirement and to support a family when you have one is really important. But you've also got to think that why I'm doing this is not just for the money. It's because I really want to help other people. I feel like that is my God-driven purpose.
Amen. I think the second one hits it, and obviously giving people an escape from whatever their life is, just something enjoyable to read, but also interwoven into my story are tidbits that are inspirational and, encouraging. And that's also the hope that I wanted to enrich the novel with, not only a story, but something of literary merit, like a Fitzgerald or something, where it's a fiction novel, but there's pieces in it that you can take away and be like, wow, okay, that's an interesting parable to help me with this situation. I can emphasize.
That's right. I can relate to that character and how he or she dealt with that challenge.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And I think your descriptions of places are really good. That's one of the really strong things about your narrative, I think, is you've been a lot of places and you describe places where I have been, and I thought they were very well described. And you described also some places I haven't been that I'd like to now go. So you inspired me to think about when this COVID-19 stuff gets under control, and it will. HIV and AIDS, we still haven't come up with a vaccine for them, but we've got it under control.
Exactly.
We didn't come up with a vaccine for SARS, but we've learned how to control it. So that will happen with COVID-19 too, and maybe even in this year. So I'm going to be wanderlust is on me right now. I'm ready to. I can have my bag packed in 30 minutes.
No, I'm definitely there, and the military has us kind of locked down, but Italian citizens can travel to certain places within the EU that are letting them without the quarantine. So like Greece, for example, someone from Italy can go to and fro Greece and have no quarantine or restrictions. They just obviously practice like
Right.
space seating, the basic stuff. But that's my first trip I have planned is I had these trips, Portugal, Greece, and Iceland, all three lined up, and Norway, were lined up and got canceled because of this. So a total of 24 trips in 15 countries and 24 cities between March 1st and today that literally got canceled. All my reservations, everything. I got all my money back, but it's disheartening that, I came over here not honestly not because of the military, but to quench my thirst for adventure and travel and to fulfill that, lifelong dream, which I was doing. And it's just I'm ready to get back to those places and to enjoy the cultures and everything they have to offer. So
How old are you, Joe?
I'm 27 right now, actually.
Oh, you got a lifetime ahead. Don't worry about a few months, right?
Yes, sir.
Even if you can't go until 2021, believe me, you got a long life ahead of you. I'm near the end of mine, so. But I'm still, I work out every morning. I go to my chiropractor twice a week. I'm a great believer in chiropractic. He really helps me.
Yes, sir. I agree.
And as soon as the gym's open, I'm going back to work with a personal trainer again. And I'm looking forward to another 10 active years. I think by the time I hit 94, I may be drooling in my soup by then. I don't know. But I'm going to make the most of whatever years I've got. Fortunately, my wife is 6 years younger, so she's ready to go with me at the drop of a hat. Her dad was a career Air Force jet pilot and judge advocate, so
wow, okay.
she lived all over the world.
That's amazing. You guys have that in common, and I did some research. And as I'm going to go through these questions with you, if you don't mind,
Okay.
too. And
sure, go ahead, please.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciated the insights, and I really want to reach out to you again. We can talk via email and to really get some more on with my book for sure. But for this purpose, moving forward now, like you mentioned your wife, I definitely have that in a question here. And this podcast is kind of along when I talk about my book. So I started this whole thing, this brand, with the idea of if you build it, they will come. And for a while, I was discouraged with a lot of people not listening, etc., the following. But really, it's not about that anymore. It's about, even if it's one person, I'm going to give the energy and input and enthusiasm as if I'm talking to a crowd of 1,000. And that's eventually people will listen, and the right person it'll go to. And it's just a matter of that faith that I hold on to. And that's what motivated me to actually brave out and start it. And this is only the fourth episode of the Ignited Podcast. And it's just for your time and willingness to do it. I really appreciate it. And you have such an awesome and an incredible story, because I've did some research. Obviously, we're writers, we do that. And that kind of segues into the first question I have. We kind of talked in the beginning about some of the things that you've done, and National Speakers Association, and you're originally from Greenville, South Carolina. Being South Carolina itself, I know the accent. You're in Lexington County now, and you and your wife started the Lexington County Chronicle. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And then you published 15 books. You've operated and ran, worked with several newspapers across the country as, editing and coaching editors, as you mentioned. And you've even led, upon research, I've seen that you've led a lot of newspapers to receive prestigious awards, which
Right.
I found to be extremely awesome. But the question really that I have after all that is, what was really your inspiration to enter that door and to get started with all of that?
Well, I'll blame three people. My mother first. We grew up in the late 30s and early 40s during World War two. And my dad was away in school in Chicago, and we were in Greenville, South Carolina, living with my grandparents. My mother was working for my grandfather, but in the evening, my mother would read to my sister and me. We didn't have a television. We didn't have enough money even to buy a radio, but she bought a collection of children's books that I still have, and she read to us in the evening, and believe me, that fired my imagination. It fired my sister's imagination too. She decided she wanted to become an actress, and I wanted to become a writer and storyteller. She taught me the alphabet, how to form words long before I ever went to school. In fact, when she would write my father 4 or 5 letters a week, and he would write her from Chicago quite often too. And so on the end of her letter, she would let me write a little message to my father. It would say something like, "Hi, Dad, I love you, Jerry." But but that was a big deal for a 4-year-old kid.
Of course, yes.
And then my the third newspaper I worked for, a professional daily newspaper, was a guy named Lloyd Huntington at the state newspaper in Columbia. I'd already worked for the Greenville News and the Charlotte News. And I'd taken a year off I was going to write a novel, and I ended up writing a screenplay and several television plays with a friend. We never sold any of them, but we sure tried. But anyway, after a year, I ran out of money, and so I went down to see Lloyd, and he told me, Lloyd shared with me his vision of what a newspaper really should do. And he said, he described 3 things. He said, 1, it should embrace its reader. It should know who its readers are and what their concerns are and address those problems. He said, secondly, it should care about its community. And, there we were in the capital city of South Carolina. And he said, that state house over there, which was like a mile away from the newspaper office, he said, there are people over there serving in that state house that are corrupt from their teeth to their toes. And we need to ferret those people out and expose them.
Right.
They're taking advantage of their constituents. They're taking advantage of the South Carolina taxpayers. They're not really performing a service. And he said the third thing is, he said, the newspaper ought to be interesting and entertaining. It ought to be easy to read. It ought to make simplify a complicated world. So it should be a welcome guest at your front door every morning. Now that kind of became my mission. I've embraced that wholeheartedly. And when my wife came to work at the state, she finished a 4-year journalism degree at Carolina in 3 years.
Wow. Okay. Impressive.
They hired her, and they had her work in every department. And when she finished the program, she worked for me on the copy desk, which is the last line of defense before it was set in type. She worked with me for a week, and I really put her through boot camp. But when she got through with, the managing editor said, well, you know what everybody does here now. Where would you like to work? He figured she was going to say, well, she wanted to be a reporter or whatever. And she said, I want to work on the copy desk with Jerry. And he said, really? You know, after the boot camp he put you through? She said, I learned more from him than I did from anybody else.
Wow.
Well, we became friends, then we became lovers and became husband and wife. And she has really been my inspiration for 56 years.
Wow.
This woman has put up with me. She's gone where I wanted to go, did what I wanted to do.
Oh, yes.
But she's my partner in life and career and business and marriage. She's our publisher and a very good one.
I can
She's
imagine.
she's one of the smartest people I know. Um, she tolerates me as being a somewhat dreamy-eyed, bumbling idealist, but
We have that in common.
but we'll find you a smart one. Believe me, it'll pay off.
No, I bet in 56 years, that's a huge congratulations to you there. And that can I'll skip a couple questions and go to the next one off of that.
Okay.
I'm a huge romantic as well. And being in Europe, it just fires the pistons of my romantic side for sure. And,
Right.
love is perhaps the greatest ship we have as, that people require and desire to help us cross the sea of life. It just adds so much to our journeys. And as you just expressed, it provides someone who could be our greatest inspiration and partner in life.
And best friend.
Best friend, yes. And what advice can you share with us about love and how it can help to, we kind of already did, to boost people's success in a world where couples and marriages are really falling apart and statistically have not held it together as much as your generation and some of the generations that precede the ones that I'm in, the one before us, where the rates are just hardly declining, and it's making love, like the longevity of love, seem almost like it's moribund, and it's more for the movies and the books instead of real life.
Well, I think lust plays a big part in this because you're going to be attracted to certain people, and certain people are going to be attracted to you.
Of course.
And usually that's a very shallow kind of relationship. It's based on physical appearances, the way you act, are you sexy or not? And I didn't do this, but now looking back on it 56 years later, I wish I had. But I think it's really important for either partner to know what their values are, what it is that they set, what is their North Star, and what are the things that they enjoy doing and would enjoy doing it with somebody else. And what are your life goals? And try to find somebody who is as close a match to that as you are, but also offsets you too. What are your strengths and weaknesses? Do they have, my wife offsets my terrible weaknesses because she's strong in the areas where I'm weak. And I like to think that maybe in her few weak areas, I can bolster and help her. So, it's like mergers and acquisitions in corporation. What is it that you bring to me, and what is it that I can offer you that would keep us together for the next 50, 75 years? I mean, lifespans are going to lengthen too. A 56-year marriage is going to probably become fairly commonplace, as commonplace as 56-month marriage.
Praying for that.
So, I would say to anyone who is looking for you're not just looking, if you're just looking for a quick roll in the hay, that ain't the answer. And I mean, you'll have plenty of opportunity like that. I'm sure you already have.
Oh, of course, yes.
But you know, I think faithfulness is really important. I know that there are people who talk about open marriages where, either party can go do whatever they want to with whoever they want to. That's, to me, that's stupid, and I think it's ungodly too. But to keep religion out of it, it's all stupid. You want someone who you can count on, not just to be faithful to the marriage bed, but be faithful to the marriage, to be faithful to you, and you in turn will be faithful to him or her. So
I agree with that.
Probably a lot more answer than you look for. But
no, I mean, I appreciate it, and it's a powerful answer, and I definitely agree with that, because I struggle with trust a lot, and even trusting myself, where I think one of the things that I always say in relationships that have failed, even currently, it's just that expectations are what make love extinct in a relationship. And I think now, as the questions you're talking about, as people in my generation and time, we don't ask the questions that are necessary to really gauge that we're on the same page. And I always tell my younger brothers, you have to become the right man before you can find the right woman. And it's something I preach to myself. And then because I haven't yet, it's just like I ask myself, well, I'm still growing. I haven't really found or become that. It must be because I haven't become that right person yet. But I think it also, like you're saying, it's more simple than that, where we just got to ask the questions. And
well, it took me a while to find her. I was 27 when we got married.
It's okay. I got hope.
Yeah. Well, I was starting to wonder if I'd ever find the girl of my dreams until she walked in. But I think even natural questions like, what do you like to read? If some girl looked at me and said, read, I mean, it would be all over right there.
I'm the same way with that. I need to be into reading, and being read to. In a relationship now is just, she listens to me read my work along the way, chapter for chapter, and it's kind of like a powerful and special thing. So it's definitely proven to be a bridge for me in my own. So definitely agree there.
I'll tell you a quick story that. Are you familiar with the writer Dean Koontz? He's written a number of best-selling thrillers.
I am actually, yes. I've read some of his books.
Yeah. Well, his wife, when he was struggling early on, writing nights and weekends and working full-time somewhere in Pennsylvania, I think he went to Shippensburg State, which was one of the Pennsylvania State College campuses. And I think that's where he and Gerda met. She said, I tell you what, he said, Dean, I will work and support us for 5 years to give you an opportunity to get established as a writer. If you haven't done it at the end of 5 years, you'll find you a job. Well, Gerda now manages the business end of his best-selling book industry.
That's amazing. Okay.
I mean, that sounds to me like a marriage made in heaven, doesn't it?
I think that has divine intervention for sure.
Absolutely. What's question number 2?
The next question. So speaking of books and movies, this is actually a movie I watched recently. It's called The Word. It's one of my favorite movies with Bradley Cooper. I don't know if you've seen it. And just a real quick to summarize, it's an author reading about his book that he wrote. And in this book, there is a struggling author who, it's a love story as well. He finds a journal, an old man's journal in Paris, who served in the war, the Great War, and had lost his work through his troubled relationship. And it's his life story. And this struggling modern day author claims that he wrote this as a fiction story and becomes famous and everything from this actual person.
I saw the movie. I can't remember the name of it, but
yeah, perfect.
Yeah, Jeremy Irons plays the author who lost the manuscript.
Exactly.
And
Yeah. Okay.
and what Dennis Quaid plays the author who claims it as his own, and it becomes a bestseller.
Okay. See, I'm glad you're familiar with it. That's amazing. It's one of my favorite movies, and you
Yeah,
know, that kind of pegs the question. You talk about values, and off of that, authenticity is something that I find to be extremely important. But in my world, and Auxilium, my brand is about fitness of the mind and body. I'm a master trainer, I'm a certified nutritionist, as among other things. And I see so many people with not only writing, but posting workouts and things that they have zero authenticity, where they claim to be educated, they claim to know what they're doing, but they don't. And they're just taking it and kind of doing what this movie is doing. And I watch them become super successful off of, like, honestly, fraudulent material and a false perception, a facade per se. So how much does that play a part in your personal journey? Because I know you're extremely authentic with your work, as you've already opened up at the beginning. Have you seen and witnessed this in your own career? And how did you overcome it, if so?
well, we're talking about plagiarism, really, and there's a lot of that in journalism, unfortunately. I think anybody who steals somebody else ought to be ashamed of himself. But I read a lot, and I find ideas in what I read that I want to share with my my readers. So I'm if I take a paragraph from Elizabeth Bernstein story about personal relationships that appeared in the Wall Street Journal, I'm going to credit that. I'm saying, according to Elizabeth Bernstein in the Wall Street Journal, blah blah blah.
Exactly.
So, and I think that also authenticates that that it came from another source who is probably a reputable source, and she's probably quoting some academic or some expert in engineering or science or whatever. So I'm crediting it not only to them out of fair play, but also let the reader know where that information came from.
Right.
I think this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but there's an even worse sin going on in the media today, and that's what Trump calls fake news.
I agree with that 100%. So,
And
especially even over here, it has caused an absolute stage of disarray. I mean, now things are kind of blossoming into a sort of a state of normalcy, not entirely, but better than they were, because someone over here kind of pulled the blanket on some of the fake news, which was, an epiphany. So I'm very thankful for that. But I think America needs that moment where someone pulls the sheet off of these fake news that's being produced, and kind of
right,
cuts the heads off the hydra.
let's hope we can do that.
I actually 100% hope we can pray. And
What should
go ahead. I'm sorry.
you got another question?
Oh yes, of course. So this question is kind of more broad. If you could tell anyone that listens to this right now the best advice for getting started on any kind of project or dream, what would that advice be?
Well, you got to be committed to it. You really have to believe that what you want to do is the right thing and you're the right person to do it, or you can get the right people together to do it. You familiar with a book, Good to Great by Jim Collins?
I haven't read that. It sounds really
I
good though.
recommend it to you highly. Jim is a business researcher, and he puts together teams of graduate students to help him with his research. But He says in Good to Great, his thesis is that a lot of business enterprises settle for being good when they could be great. And in the book, he cites, I think he has either 11 or 12 different companies that he uses that they have vetted and using that whatever standard of measurement they came up with that he considered great companies. But these are companies that have a deep commitment to their customers as well as their investors. They have a deep commitment to purposes that their products or services offer. They have like your characters in the novel seeking a cure for cancer or have found what they think is a cure for cancer. They are driven by far more than what kind of money can be made. They're looking to serve to alleviate human suffering.
Exactly.
And so, you should be looking for something that's bigger than yourself, something that will benefit mankind or benefit your small, if you're a small businessman or small businesswoman running a barbershop or a hairstyling salon, your purpose may be to make your customers feel better about themselves and the way they look. It may be as simple as that, but it's a purpose. So, and out of such purposes come commitment, I believe. If it was just what can I do to make $1 million, I think that's a pretty shallow way to look at spending maybe 10 or 20 years of your life.
No, I'm about to get that book and read it. And it reminds me of, you ever heard of John Eldridge?
I'm searching my memory bank. That name sounds familiar. What has he written?
He's written a number of different books, and to kind of, I'll email you some of his books, the titles and stuff. But one of them he wrote with his son, and in this book he kind of talks about one of my favorite quotes. He writes, "Design reveals destiny," and he kind of goes on talking about it further. And kind of what you just said, it reminded me of that because I think of my life. I seek to be like a tree. He talks about you judge a man's character, you judge a man or woman by the fruit that they produce, just as much as an apple tree is an apple tree because it produces apple. And in the same sense, taken even further, I look at it as a tree grows and it grows to produce and to give to other things in life, like shade, fruit, whatever it may be. And it just kind of leads to from a divine perspective, I believe that we all are given gifts. And I truly believe I love writing. So where passion meets that kind of a fire, I think there's progression and there's something there to give back. I think it's a disservice to not give to others with what we are good at, in the same sense that a tree doesn't hold on to its fruit, it drops it and it gives it to animals, to us, etc. So I think that the gifts inside us producing that fruit to other people is what it's all about. And that's part of my biggest goal with my book and this, and even helping people with, their fitness and everything. So definitely just brought that to mind to me real quick.
I think that's great. Our talent, as Rush Limbaugh likes to say, comes from God, and it does. And we're all different. We have different talents, different strengths, different abilities, but these were given to us for a purpose, to use them, to help other people, to help ourselves, to make it a better world. So, and if we ignore that, we're doing ourselves first a disservice, and we're letting down the Creator who gave us these gifts.
Amen to that. No, I 100% agree with that. And that's just, like I said, that's what I strive to accomplish with the things that I do outside of the 9 to 5, which, my ultimate goal is to shed that and to stop doing something I have to do and start doing something I want to do. So the next question kind of goes into that. So like a ship in open water, I'm in the Navy, so too much space and no direction can lead to a lot of wasted time, a lot of frustrated captains, and even sinking sometimes, because you're in the middle of the ocean, you're going to get a storm eventually, yada, yada. You got to have your destination in mind. So with careers, people often dabble or they remain stagnant. They don't get started out of fear, whatever that may be. What can you tell listeners that they can do to keep their feet moving and to keep progressing themselves within and without and working towards whatever that goal or dream that they have?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. You need to have a clear destination. There may be different pathways to get there. And you may find that when you achieve the goal, that just opens up the door to more goals that you will want to achieve. But
Absolutely.
I'm excited to get out of bed every morning. I'm usually up by 5 or 5:30. I set the alarm for 6 just in case I oversleep, but I'm usually up by 5 or 5:30, and I have a list of things that uh, I wrote down the afternoon before of the things I didn't get done today go on tomorrow's to-do list, and each one of those is a mini goal. Um, I like to cite Mark Twain because he came up with so many pithy quotes, but one of his best was, the first thing you need to do every morning is swallow a big frog. And I like to say, of course, the frog's not going to like it any better than you are, but what he meant was you may have 20 things that you need to do today, but why don't you pick out the one that is going to have the biggest payoff, or is the one that will produce the greatest result, the greatest apple crop, so to speak, for you and for other people. Tackle that one first. Don't get caught down in the weeds looking for rotted apples when if you stand up straight and reach up above your head, there's fresh fruit sitting up there.
That's amazing. I love that. Wow. Okay. That one resonated a lot. I love his work. The way he writes is just amazing. So kind of segueing off of that, you've already mentioned you're at the gym, you're at the chiropractor. So fitness, I love hearing that as well. And it's just such a vital part of if life in general, but obviously a successful person 9 times out of 10, I would even go as far as saying 10 times out of 10, if they're 100% successful, is going to have their fitness on lockdown, because it just promotes so much all-roundness. So it's kind of evidence with you that you're still doing it. It makes you feel better, and just kind of how vital it is to, no matter what field you're in or what you're pursuing, fitness is just so important.
It's providential. Your body is one of the things God gave you.
Exactly.
You're the custodian. Are you going to take care of it or not?
Absolutely. Gotta take care of the temple. Has there been a single person that has been just like the biggest mentor as you've been progressing towards your career? And this could be an author, it doesn't really matter, or a person that's in your day-to-day. I know you mentioned a few people earlier. If they're the same people, and that's fine, but who's been the biggest mentor with your success with newspapers, editing, and et cetera, your field, basically?
Well, I've been fortunate to have had a lot of mentors and coaches. It's a pretty long laundry list. I would say my wife is my greatest mentor. She's younger than I am, but she's smart. She is observant. Um, she's well educated. She too is an avid reader, a very good writer, excellent writer. So she's my severest critic and my greatest supporter. So I would say she above all have probably had more influence on me than anyone. My dad, I would put as number two. Uh, he's been gone since 1977. I think about him every day. When I come to challenges or temptations, decisions, I often think, well, how would he approach this? How would he think about it? What questions would he ask? And I don't have to do that with Cloud. I can just say, hey, maybe we ought to try such and such. And she'll say, have you lost your mind? Which begins not an argument, but a spirited discussion.
Of course, which is healthy.
She knows that I'm very stubborn, and when I want to do something, I'm pretty determined to do it. And she's going to have to marshal some pretty stout reasons why I should not.
That's great. That's the support system there, and that partnership is beautiful you have, and it just resonates the whole conversation we've had. And it's definitely something that I aspire to, welcome into and hug really in my own life when that time comes. So I love hearing it, and it gives me hope, and I appreciate you sharing that and instilling that in me. So the last question before I ask you I have basically three questions I ask everyone to interview that are kind of like just the pillar questions to work off of. Before we get to them, I have one last question for you. What has been the biggest struggle that you faced along the road to your success on the Dreamway per se, and what did you do to overcome that?
I don't know that I have, but I'm I'm very independent minded. I believe in what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing, and I believe in the initiatives that we take. And when I work for other people, I sometimes didn't sell my ideas as well as I should have, and that ended up hurting me more than emotionally. I think it hurt me in my career, or at least in that organization. I found I've worked for so many newspapers. In fact, I edited 13 newspapers at the time.
Wow.
Well, I had a lot of help, fortunately.
That is fortunate.
But I was the guy. I was the guy holding the torch. But there were. Well, I'll give you an example. I was editing a newspaper where we won a Pulitzer Prize for investigative reporting, and we had the editor who I succeeded appointed an ombudsman. This was back in the 70s and early 80s, but ombudsmen on newspapers were kind of a trend at that time. I think the Washington Post was the first, or the New York Times were the first to have an ombudsman. But this was a person that people could come to if they had a complaint against the newspaper or its reporting or how it handled something, or just had a question about, how the newspaper handles something. And the previous editor, who went on to run the Gannett news service in Washington, was an attorney by training, but a very good journalist. And he had appointed this ombudsman who was a guy on the staff. And Bob wrote a Sunday column about questions that readers had about how we had handled a story or why we had overlooked a story or whatever. And he did a very thorough job of it, because he would always go first to the reporter who wrote the story and the editor who handled it, and try to get a basic answer from the reader. And if we actually blew it, and occasionally you do,
Right, of course.
we would admit that in the paper in his column. Well, a new publisher came in to take over the paper from the publisher who left, and he didn't like the idea of having an ombudsman. We discussed it, and I said, Bob, newspapers have credibility problems, and this is one of the real ways that we can deal with it, is to lay out our dirty linen when it's there, or to tell what really happened, and how either we were misled or what the true facts really were. And he said, well, I want you to get rid of the ombudsman, find something else to do. Well, that was really crucial to me.
Right.
So I went and talked to the ombudsman, and I said, the publisher really wants to do away with your job. I don't agree with him, and I know you don't either, but he's the boss. I guess we're going to have to do it. And he said, well, do you mind if I go talk? And I said, no, he's got an open door. So he went, and I don't know what all he told the publisher, but the publisher's secretary called me about 30 minutes later, and she said, can you come into Mr. Collins' office? I said, sure. And I tapped on his door and walked in, and he said, you really screwed up big time. I said, what do you mean? He said, you went and told the ombudsman that we were going to do away with his job. And I said, wasn't that what you sent me to do? And he said, yeah, but you didn't handle it well. And I said, well, how the hell did you expect me to handle a situation like this? He said, I don't think you and I are going to be able to get along. He said, why don't you go ahead and clean out your desk? And
Wow.
I said, well, I didn't like the PRICK anyway.
No, yeah.
So I went and sat down with my managing editor and my assistant, and I said, well, I guess I'm being shown the door, so here's what I suggest that you do as I walk out. One, Florence, please get my stuff together, and I'll send one of my kids down to pick it up. And two, Bill, why don't you get the staff together and tell them the truth, that I've been fired over the ombudsman's job. And of course, by the time I got home, the phone had been ringing, and McLeod said, what the hell is going on? And I said, well, I just got fired. She said, well, half the world is called here wanting to know what is going on. Well, we finally took the kids out to dinner to get away from the telephone. But before we went out to dinner, I already had a job offer at the Philadelphia Bulletin across town.
That's amazing. Word got around real fast.
Yeah. So anyway, it turned out to be one of the nicest days of my life.
That's amazing.
I don't know why I even told you that story, but anyway.
No, I appreciate it. It's a good story, and it rings such validity in everyone's life. It's sometimes, Dwayne Johnson's someone I really look up to, and he talks about he's such a good person, good soul, and one of the things he mentions, and I often talk about it, is his football career. He was going to go to the NFL, he got hurt, and he says straight up, my dream not coming true, me not playing professional football, me getting hurt was the best thing that ever happened to me. And when it was happening, it sucked and it was discouraging, but it opened the door to what was really waiting for me, that success. And I think
Right.
that's, how
Yeah.
it is a lot of times where I feel like we walk through life and we're in an open field and we're crouched behind a door and we don't realize that all we do is stand up around it. There's not a giant fence. It's just one door in the middle of the field, and then
That's
that's
right.
kind of where that kind of leads to. And you mentioned with teamwork, and there's an African proverb that I often go to, and I have a lot of friends from Africa, and there are some beautiful quotes from their cultures, and one of them is a famous one that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that there's such
Mm.
that's such a true statement as well, where
I'm gonna write that down. That's great.
yeah, you just got to you got to have people and connected. You can't, nothing in the ecosystems work alone. So why would we be any different? We never have from the beginning of human time. So we just got to continue that. And that's something I live by too, where I get caught up feeling like I'm doing things alone. So I'll start a group with a couple of my buddies, and it's like a motivational group. We'll all kind of help each other out, whatever we're doing, our careers and things like that, because it's just essential, like as essential as the eye is to the arm, you know, you can't see without the eye, and the arm is useless without it knowing what it's reaching for. So I think that in the same sense that as a collection of human beings, we have to work together to accomplish individual goals and collective goals in the same way the body parts have to work together to accomplish, everyday life and function. So I digress a little bit, but the last three questions that I have for you are just quick questions. They're kind of fun. And the first one is, if by some magic, say a genie, whatever, gave you an option, a chance to change one single thing in the universe from all that was, all that is, and all that ever will be, what would you change and why?
That'd probably make us all colorblind.
That is perfect. Perfect with everything going on too. And I was just talking to my friend from Haiti who is living in the United States about that. Perfect. And the
Listen,
next one, if you knew everyone was listening right now, what would be the one single thing that you would share with them?
dedicate your life to a purpose greater than yourself. No, you're in the Navy. You're part of something that's greater than yourself. It's the United States Navy, probably the greatest Navy ever since the Spanish Armada and the British Royal Fleet. I don't know whether you're planning to make a career of the Navy or not, but I enjoyed my time in the Army because I realized that, I was part of something a lot bigger than myself. It's the same thing with when I joined Rotary International. It's a group that does wonderful things all over the world. So dedicate your life to something that's bigger than yourself, that has a real clear purpose, and make a 100% commitment to it. Not 95%, not 98%, not even 99%, 100% commitment.
I love that. No, I 100% am there with you on that. And that's definitely something that I think is just in every recipe for, any kind of success or anything you're doing in life really is half effort's not going to get you anywhere. It's funny, I was reading a book by a woman named Jen Cicero, and she was kind of referencing Thomas Edison, a couple other guys, Henry Ford, and talking about Henry Ford, how he always was 100%, even when his engineers, he didn't finish much schooling, and let alone engineering. And these smart guys were telling him, what you're trying to do with this 8-cylinder engine is just impossible. It's never going to work. Here's the evidence why. And lots of time went by, and he's just like, nope, I'm 100% going for this. It's possible. Make it possible. Keep going. And his consistency and his 100% effort 100% of the time eventually led to the invention of so-called and something that was impossible. So I think that is so true. Whereas if you just stay consistent, like the woodpecker, the woodpecker makes the home by pecking on and on and on and on. It doesn't peck once, doesn't peck twice. It keeps pecking, and that's what creates the home. And I think the same sense is true with anything we do in life. Is we have to just keep putting all the effort we have into the things we want, and eventually we're going to find ourselves at the riverbanks of whatever dream we have.
Yep, I agree. John Wooden, when he was the legendary basketball coach at UCLA, they won 11 national championships. Probably a feat that will never be duplicated or a record never be broken. But he used to tell his kids, particularly those who were having a bad day, he'd put his arm around them and he would say, son, he said, I need you to give me 100% every day. He said, I can't settle for 80 or 85%. And you're going to make up the other 50% tomorrow because there's no way to go past 100%. So get back out there and give me 100% now, or go on to the locker room.
That's a good coach right there, obviously. The third question I have, we kind of already answered, and it's basically on routine, like daily routine. You kind of gave us that awesome quote you shared, Swan the Frog. So that kind of rings true with your daily routine. Does that, writing down your goals and choosing the ones that are accomplishable, and in essence, drinking the whole pitcher one glass at a time, is that something that you accomplish on the daily? You said you get up at the same time, you try to work out every day. So is there anything else that you didn't mention before that you kind of do on the daily?
Well, one of the nice things about what I do is every day is different. I suspect yours is too. Every day brings new opportunities and new challenges. So, I may write out my list of goals for the next day at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, but sometimes that will change in the morning. A new opportunity will pop up that I hadn't anticipated. Well, I'm not going to shove that down to the bottom of the list unless that's where it ought to be.
Right.
I'm going to compare it against the other things, the other opportunities and goals that I had set for the day. And if it's clearly the one that I really need to pursue right now, then everything else is going to wait, sit on the shelf until I get it done. So that kind of thing does happen. I try to plan my day ahead so that, and I always have more things on the list than I know I'll possibly get done. But that's okay, because I know I'm going to do the most important ones on the list, and the other things will just have to wait until tomorrow.
Right. No, exactly. No, that's mimics. I kind of emulate that with my routine. I definitely am a huge goal setter, writing down what I'm thankful for, and also kind of stemming off of Napoleon Hill's auto-suggestion theory, where I kind of like envision that I'm living the life that I want to live, like having my book be successful. I write with the perspective that it's already there. And public speaking is something I want to do. So I write from a perspective of a stage. Sometimes I get so specific that I feel the energy and the emotions involved with if I'm on a stage. If I have a prop or people's reactions, I like literally envision and create a world in my mind and in my journal that, I might as well be there. The only difference is if I open my eyes, then I'm, at home. So I think it's powerful to have that consistency.
I agree with you. I think journaling is important too, because I think it's one way that you can be super honest with yourself. You can talk about what happened today and what I learned from it.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Socrates who said the unexamined life isn't worth living. Mm-hmm. And by that, what he meant was to reflect on what happened, what we did about it, what we learned from it, succeed or fail. Mm-hmm. Welcome your failures too, because that's what you learn from. You learn a lot more from your failures than you ever do from your successes.
Absolutely. That's definitely true. That rings in almost every inspiration book that I've ever read. Fail forward. That's what they all say. That is,
Oh,
go ahead.
are we through?
Yeah, that's all the questions I have. And, thank you so much, Bellune, for taking your time and sharing everything you did. It's been amazing. And I definitely want to, talk again soon. And I'm going to write you more about those pictures I sent you of my day in Toscana. And I look forward to just sharing the adventures here and kind of bouncing the memories back and forth. Hence the title of my book. I'm kind of a huge fan of reflection and memories. They're pretty exciting aspects of life.
All right. Listen, I really appreciate the opportunity to do this with you too. It's always refreshing to be able to talk with people who are thoughtful and think beyond what am I going to have for dinner.
I agree with that. It's unfortunate that there's not more people out there, as many people out there as there should be. Put it that way.
There are more of them out there than probably you or I suspect. We just haven't met them all yet. But my life has been enriched by people that I have met, young and old, all colors, all nationalities, all genders, both genders. So I think it's a trite phrase, but I really am a people person. And my wife says when we travel that I interview wait staffs, I interview hotel clerks, I interview airline flight attendants. I'm interested in people.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that.
I'm obnoxiously friendly, as Pat Conroy said about himself. I'm genuinely interested in other people and their lives. He was too. That's where he said he got some of his best material. People think of him mostly as an autobiographical writer, but if you notice the characters in his book, they jump out of the pages like real people. That comes from caring about people and listening to their stories.
Right. No, I think that's powerful. Definitely powerful.
All right, great. Okay,
Yes,
buddy. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, sir. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.
All right, ciao, ciao. Buongiorno.
Ciao. Ciao. Yep.